Lego Bike Man here, coming at you with another video. What's up, my dude? So the gameplay that you're looking at is my third main event from the Triple Crown Pro RF 450 race. Okay, just wanted to come here and talk about this track. RF, finally, you have finally put a big rhythm on one of your Supercross tracks that's actually worth hitting. You finally put a big rhythm that's actually faster to hit versus just hitting like some little baby double in. I'm telling you right now, RF, if this would have been the level of your tracks at like Anaheim 1 or the second round, if you were making tracks on this level that early on, you'd have never even heard a peep out of me, like complaint-wise. I mean, this right here is pretty much perfect. Like, in the realm of the way I would consider like skill gap and traction and big rhythms being worth it, but the transitions aren't janky. You know what I'm saying? The whoops are decent size, berms are decent size, all this other kind of stuff. As a whole, I wouldn't even complain about this track at all. You understand what I'm saying? This is all you had to do. I don't know why it was so hard to get to this point and why we've been in so many different directions in just this one season trying to get to this point. It just mind baffles me. It's beyond me. It has been such a struggle for you guys. And, you know, if you want to get mad at my opinion, let me just ask you one thing. Have you not literally done every single thing I was saying and telling you to do to these tracks back in those videos I was making on Anaheim 1 in the second round and the third round? Have you not literally done basically everything I told you to do? So what, are you going to get mad at me, but yet you did everything that I told you to do? I'm a little confused. Like, you've made the berms bigger, okay? You've made the whoops more skill gapped and bigger. You've made the jumps bigger, okay? But not like the weird, janky, big jumps like you had in, I think it was Seattle and Denver, maybe. You kind of got on this little, trying to do these really big jumps all of a sudden, but then they had these weird transitions, and I went in there and told you, hey, your transitions are too close together. It makes it feel janky. Even when you went in there and made your big jumps on Seattle and Denver, you couldn't even hit a big line anyways because it wasn't worth it. Everybody was just doing like a double in or double onto a table. Even the round right before this, it was a double onto the table, a little simple, little triple, no separation whatsoever, right? So now we come in here and you actually make a real Supercross rhythm section where the triple in is actually worth it. The triple in is actually faster and you can separate yourself, right? The 450s can actually separate themselves from the 250s. It just hasn't really felt like we've been able to hardly do that on any of these tracks this year so far, in my opinion. And that's what's made it so different than any of the previous Supercross championships that I've raced in this game. Like if you go back to 14s, 15s, 16s, 17s, 18s, 19s, I mean literally just about every single track had some sort of a big rhythm that was A, too hard to even hit on a 250. You couldn't even do it on a 250. And B, it was a big rhythm, but it was actually faster than hitting the slow rhythm. So it was like you had to try to hit it every lap. You understand what I'm saying? So you used to have at least one of those on every single one of your tracks, sometimes even two of those, and whether it's got a quad in it or not, that's kind of besides the point. I mean, it's anything in that jump realm. I mean, it can be bigger triples. It can be, I don't know why that dude slowed up so much on that. It can be bigger triples. It can be, you know, whatever, like not necessarily a quad like you would think 4 jumps in a row, but like jumping over a table in another jump or 2 tables, or, you know, it's about getting the scaling of it right to where it feels like you're hitting something big. I mean, this rhythm is perfect right here, dog. Literally, yeah, it could have been maybe smooth like 5% more, but that's starting to get into the realm of where I wouldn't even complain about that, right? But like, yeah, you can tell it's still got a little bit of that weird transition-y feel to it, but I felt like this rhythm, this is what you should have. You should have a rhythm like this on just about every single one of your Supercross tracks. Literally every single one of them. Like that last round, what Foxborough, I guess, or whatever, holy God, that track was too easy. There was just nothing to separate it. You've gotten to that point to where it felt like you were making tracks that didn't even feel like Supercross tracks, right? Because literally everybody was hitting the same exact jump rhythm on the second lap of qualifying and never hitting anything different, never doing anything different. But now, finally, here we are, round, 16? Literally 16. We're one round away from the final round, and you have finally put in an actual rhythm, big rhythm, that's faster to hit the big rhythm. Like, finally you've done that. I'm mind baffled that it took us this long. I really am. Like, RF, what are you going to get mad at me? And you literally do everything that I tell you to do like 2 or 3 months later? It's insane. Don't make me have to go back to outdoors last year when me and Hunter Root and Alexis Leclerc were coming in there and telling you in the first 2 or 3 rounds, like, hey, where is the pre-made? Why are we flat tracking? Why is there literally no pre-made ruts or roughness anywhere? What are you doing? And a lot of you RF boys got in there and was acting like that just wasn't the right thing to do. It was better to have low pre-made, high erode, right? But then that's kind of funny, a little confused that a lot of you guys in RF were thinking that, because by the time we got to the end of the outdoor series last year, it was literally triple the amount of pre-made that we had at the beginning of the year. So that's what I'm getting at, dog. Like, when I come out and be so rant boy at Anaheim 1 this year, tell you how rolled off your corners are, how crappy your traction is, how simplistic your jump rhythms are, and then you come in here and literally do everything that I told you to do, who was really in the wrong there, huh? Just think about that for a second. Like, come on now. We've got to be able to do this with your tracks quickly. Like, I get if the first round's not quite there. I get it. You know, you're trying to kind of find your track-making basis. But you got to have that crap lined out in that second or third round bare minimum. You got to have it lined out, dog. We can't be having this, here we are, round 16, and you're just finally starting to get it. Like, man. And then it's the thing, you need to be taking opinions from the tippity top of the slope of the game, okay? I'm talking about the Hunter Roots. I'm talking about the Tyson Fresquez's. That's the people you need to be taking opinions from when you're building tracks. You don't need to be taking opinions from these fresh Pro-Am 250 dudes that want the whole track to be built completely around the 250, okay? You don't need to be building tracks around that and like that, and you've done that more than a handful of times this year. It's like you just built the entire track around the 250. The 450 can't hit anything different, and even if it could, it wouldn't be nowhere near worth it time-wise anyways, because it'd be slower. Right? So you're literally just like letting off everywhere on the 450, hitting some simplistic little 250 line over the whole track. You've got to have a certain skill gap to it. You know what I'm saying? You've got to have a certain separation. When it's to the point like it was last week, which was Foxborough, right? When it's to the point where literally on like lap 4 of a heat race, there's 8 people in one rhythm, the track is too easy. When you can only wreck one time and you still don't get top 9 on a track, you fall down one time and that's it. You can't get top 9, you can't get in on the heat. The track is too easy, okay? Like, there has to be, people have forgotten how to jump in this game, I swear to God. There was so many dudes in the 450 class couldn't even hit this line, couldn't even do this right here. It was insane. And this is not like an insanity jump rhythm. There I go messing up on the triple part of it. But this is not like an insanity jump rhythm, dog. This is like just what you would expect at this point in 2020 RF Supercross racing. This to me is just normal. And that was the thing when you started amping up your jumps in Seattle and Denver and all that. Yeah, you amped your jumps up, but the transitions were too close together. The jumps didn't flow enough. And on top of all that, everybody was just doubling in because it was faster. So you had a potential to maybe have like a triple or a quad on some of your different tracks, but it was never worth it. It was never faster. Everybody was just tripling up the inside or doubling up the inside or whatever. Like the biggest potential line on every single one of your other tracks this year so far just weren't being hit because they weren't faster. This is literally the first rhythm you've put in on any of your tracks this year so far where the big rhythm is actually faster. That's insane. You used to do that on every single one of your tracks in RF. And I guess this is all coming from changing your track makers. I don't really know. But I'm just saying, holy, has it felt like a beta test with these tracks. I mean, literally, like, come on now. I mean, you're RF. Like, you can't get mad at me for holding you to a standard, man. You boys have been doing this for 10 years now. Like, you get mad at me as if I'm, like, supposed to be in this realm of, oh, well, they'll figure it out. It's RF. Give them a chance. Like, dog, we're on year 10 here. You're expected to output, like, solid, decent, certain skill gap level of tracks. That's just what you're expected to do. So, don't be getting upset at me coming in here and being real with you and telling everything you needed to do with these tracks. Like, come on now, bro. I mean, come on now. And I've looked at the list of the track makers for RF, and I'm not saying them boys are bad track makers, but I'm also not saying they have this, like, humongous resume of tracks that they've made that would just totally qualify them to be an RF track maker either. You see what I'm saying? It's not like you pulled in a JGMX or a BAC. You kind of just pulled in some of these other little random community track makers. Yeah, they've made, you know, a few decent tracks here and there. I'm not saying their tracks are terrible or whatever, but to be an RF track maker, I don't know. And we've kind of seen the result of that. It's literally taken us 16 rounds of doing every different possible combination, the most inconsistent Supercross season we have ever had in this game. I'm telling you, it seems like we've went between 7 different tractions, 7 different styles of whoops, 25 different styles of corners, 35 different styles of scaling. I mean, it has literally been the most all-over-the-place Supercross season. It is what it is. How are you even going to disagree with me? It is what it is. Don't make me have to pull up one lap on every single track to prove it to you. You know it's been the most inconsistent year by far. Literally by far, dog. Not even close. Not even, like, man. But I think the biggest thing that's hurt you the most is the traction. It's the tile map. So what happens here, listen to what I'm saying, okay? What happens is when you get a tile map that's too friction-based and it's cutting down your power too much, what that does is that sort of limits your potential for multiple jump rhythm options, right? Because you've limited the power that the bike can go to a point to where it don't matter how much room you give us in the corners to hit a certain jump, we can't do it anyways, or it's not going to be worth it anyways. And when you make such a friction-based traction and such a almost like sandy feeling traction, you can't hardly get up to speed, it makes it to where everybody's just hitting the same exact thing because you've sort of limited that speed in a sense. You know, you put a limiter on the speed. Whereas like if you go back to the 17 tracks, you can go just about as fast as you want to go. You know, there's nowhere near as much friction. What that does is that opens up the doors for jump rhythms and skill gap everywhere, whether it be in the corners, whether it be in the whoops, whatever it may be. So I think that's the biggest thing that's hurt you. Like, yeah, some of your track designs have been off and everything, but like literally though, listen to me, RF. If you would have just took the traction from 2017 RF Supercross and just put it on all these 2020 Supercross tracks, the tracks literally instantly would have been twice as good. Just from that, just from the traction. It would have opened up the doors to where a lot of those bigger lines that weren't necessarily worth it with the current 2020 traction, this high friction traction, it would have opened up those lines to where those lines would have been a little more worth it. The corners wouldn't have felt so crappy and like there was no berm there. That's one of the biggest problems. See, even when you go back to the 17 tracks, like, yeah, I mean, the berms weren't really that huge, even back on the 17 tracks. But why do they feel so much bigger? It's because the traction is there, dog. You don't feel like you're in this weird, wet, friction-y sand like you do on these 2020 tracks. So that in itself has caused your corners to feel even smaller than what they really are, because you can't really like dig into the corner, you know, you can't really power into the corner like you could on the 17s. So that's hurt you like pretty drastically. All right, so we got it on my first main event of the Triple Crown here. Had a couple of doozies on this one too, but like RF, you come on now. I mean, I know it's like, let's hate on Spencer because, you know, he's Mr. Ramp Boy, but come on now. You know what I'm saying is true. And if you didn't think it was true, then why are you making tracks like this now? I'm just a little confused. Why did you completely change everything you were doing in outdoors last year by the time you got to the end of the rounds? Putting in more pre-made, lesser road. Now, these Supercross tracks, you're making bigger berms, you're making more traction tile maps, you're making bigger rhythms that are actually worth it. Why would you do all that if I was so wrong? That's what I'm confused about. Oh, shit, still got the erode from the race before. Hang on just a second. It's like, I mean, I get it. Like, I come off as being this, you know, Mr. Know-It-All, cocky, whatever, but it's just the truth of it, man. Like, I've raced, I've earned my stripes, multiple top 5s and 450 main events back without any erode, and even in the modern day with the road, I've gotten top 5s. Like, I've seen how you have made these tracks over the years. I know what I'm talking about, okay? It's not like, oh, wow, good one, Spence. Like, why don't you just go in there and make them, right? That's a common little, Spence, why don't you just go make the tracks if you're so good at making tracks? Well, I'm not on the RF team, okay? I'm not the RF track maker, okay? If I was, I would make sure they were held to this kind of a standard right here. I wouldn't be releasing what they came out with at Anaheim 1 this year, I can promise you. If I was the track maker, them berms would not have been that rolled off, not even close. Like, even with the main triples, you're finally starting to get that now. Why did that take so long? We went from super kickered out, like, jump to an absolute another planet, like the bike couldn't even hardly handle it, to, like, normal triple face. This is like a normal track, RF. Like, why is it so hard to get to this? I don't get it. We should have had this at Anaheim 1. Bare minimum should have had it at the second or third round. Man, the racing would have been so much better if that had been the case. Like, you have to have rhythms for separation on MX Simulator. And you can't have so much friction to the dirt traction that it makes it to where you can't even hit different lines. You know what I mean? That option multiple jump lines really is what MX Simulator Supercross is all about. It's what it's always been about. You guys have been trying to like have this restricting us hitting the quads. Oh, we are not going to let you hit a quad no matter what. Even if we do accidentally put a quad on a track, we're going to make it to where it's not even worth hitting. It's not even faster. Like, why are you doing that? You can go back to the past 10 years of tracks in this game. And nearly every single track has at least, oh, not crossing over there, Big Hoss. Holy God. Like, they say, get a brain, Spencer. Yeah, get a brain, Spencer. Literally all the way on the left side of the track. Holy Christ. Oh, me, oh, my. Yeah, no, I need to get a brain. I'm the one that needs to get a brain. What in God's green earth, dude? Oh, man. Anyways, neither here nor there. I'm just saying, you get to the pro level, expect anything, okay? People will cross over. People will get back on the track any which way. Don't think just because you're racing pro that people won't do different stuff. But either way, like, that's the thing. MX Simulator has always been like that. There's always at least been some sort of a, not necessarily a quad, but almost like quad type equivalent style jump, whether it's 2 tabletops or whatever you want to consider it, or a bigger triple in that's pretty difficult or whatever, right? And it's always something where there was like 2 or 3 different like legit line options. You know, the 250s couldn't quite hit as big of a line as what the 450 could hit. The top dudes in the 450 class were hitting some kind of a line that was actually faster and worth it. I mean, that's been something that's been a steady, consistent thing across the board on all of the RF Supercross tracks over the years. You can go all the way back to 13 tracks, and they've got lines like that on pretty much every track. The 14s for sure have lines like that on almost every single track. There's some of the 14 tracks have 2 or 3 sections like that on each one of the tracks. Yeah, it can get a little out of hand, but, you got to at least have that one main rhythm where there's some sort of a 450 only type line on it. You know what I mean? You've got to have that, man. You've just got to forfeit top level 450 dudes. Let me clarify. Yeah, there's a lot of like beginner pro 450 dudes that aren't really going to be able to buck up and hit it, but I'm talking top like top 5, top 10 dudes. That one line that's like really tricky to hit every lap. And in my opinion, they still don't quite have the traction where it needs to be. I mean, this kind of like, what even is this? I don't know. That would have never happened on a 17 tracks traction right there. But I think that's kind of what's killed them the most, though, is the traction, because, like I say, it's made the corners feel smaller than what they really are. It's made the jumps feel more one line than what they really are. The traction, I feel, has really put a hurting on every part of the track because it affects every part of the track. You know what I mean? Like, literally, you can go back to any of those 17 Supercross tracks, and you're just instantly like, oh, this is Supercross. Okay, got it. From all these previous 2020 RF Supercross tracks, it's basically, you don't really have to huck the bike in on a triple in. There's not really anywhere you got to pull up on, huck the bike, hit a quad. Like, it just hasn't been like that so far this entire 2020 Supercross season. But now, finally, everything about this track is twice as good as any of those other tracks you've made. And don't let any of those other people fool you into trying to say this was too big of a jump rhythm. This was, oh my God, the track was too hard. This track was normal to me. This track is like what I expected to be the RF 2020 tracks. Yeah, the whoops aren't perfect, but they're a lot better than a lot of those early whoop designs you guys had going on. Even this little like triple over here, it's the way this corner sweeps around. See, it really gives you multiple line options in this corner. Like if you want to cut far to the right at the beginning and then cut far to the left, or if you're trying to protect the inside or like whatever, this triple jump face is just big enough, and the landing of it is just dangerous enough to where it makes it fun. You know what I'm saying? It gives it some skill gap. Whereas what was so cool about this rhythm is even if you messed up kind of in this second quad area, triple area, you could land right here and still hit a quad all the way into the corner. You could either hit a quad in the middle, you could hit a quad in the end. So there was ways to like save yourself if you did kind of mess up on it in a certain way in the middle of the rhythm, whereas usually most of the tracks this year so far, you couldn't even have done that. All you could have done if you would have messed up would have been to have tripled this and then singled versus quad into the corner. So you can't deny it. Supercross on MX Simulator has always been a rhythm-based thing. It's always been a big line, rhythm quad-based thing. You need to get that, oh my God, that's not realistic crap out of your head. Like, you've got to get that out of your head because we're not even racing on realistic dirt to begin with. There's no cushion. There's none of these other skill gappy elements to the dirt like what you have in real life. So you've got to make up for that skill gap-wise, whether it's in jump rhythms or whoop skill gap. You got to make up for the skill gap somewhere. So, but either way, for the love of God, in 2021 Supercross, make the tracks like this. Not like Anaheim 1 this year. You know what I mean? Make them like this. Not like Foxborough. That shit is way too easy. It's boring. There's nothing to the track. You've got to make tracks that have skill gap.